Hello, and welcome to Sleep to Stories. And in today's story, a 13-year-old boy vanishes from a quiet neighborhood without leaving a single trace behind. 3 long years go by with no answers until a surprising phone call arrives from thousands of miles away across the ocean. A young person claims to be the missing boy, but as he steps back into his old family home, strange details begin to emerge that do not make any sense at all. If you are the kind of person who likes drifting off to stories like this one, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and turning on notifications. It really helps the channel grow and ensures you never miss a new story before sleep. But for now, let us get back to it. It is June in 1994 in San Antonio, Texas. The weather is hot, and summer break has just started for neighborhood children. 13-year-old Nicholas Barkley is spending his afternoon playing basketball with his friends. Nicholas is a boy with bright blonde hair and striking blue eyes. He lives in a working-class neighborhood about 1 mile away from the local park where he is playing. Around 5 o'clock in the afternoon on June 13, 1994, Nicholas calls his home. He asks for a ride back from the park. His older brother answers the phone, but no one comes to pick him up. Nicholas is told to walk home instead. Nicholas sets off on the short walk back to his house. It is only a mile, a walk he has done many times before. But Nicholas never arrives. When evening comes and Nicholas is still not home, his mother, Beverly Dollarhide, becomes deeply worried. She walks around the neighborhood, asking neighbors if anyone has seen her son. Nobody has seen him. Beverly goes to the San Antonio Police Department to report her 13-year-old son missing. However, when police officers open Nicholas's file, they see that he had some minor trouble before his disappearance. He had small arguments at home and minor issues at school. Because of these past incidents, the police classify Nicholas as a runaway. A runaway is a child who leaves home by choice. When police think a child is a runaway, they often wait, believing the child will return on his own in a few days. Because of this decision, law enforcement does not launch a large search party. Local news channels do not report on the missing boy. Beverly Dollarhide later shared how lonely and painful that moment felt. She said, "His disappearance never made the news. It wasn't news to them. It was just news to us." Days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months. There are no search teams, no poster campaigns, and no news reports. Years slowly pass by. 1 year passes, then 2 years, then 3 years. The family continues to live in San Antonio, carrying the painful weight of not knowing if Nicholas is safe, hurt, or even alive. Then, in October 1997, 3 years and 4 months after Nicholas vanished, everything changes. A phone call comes into the police department in San Antonio. The call comes from thousands of miles away, from a small youth shelter in Linares, Spain. Linares is a quiet town in southern Europe. A worker at the Spanish shelter tells the officers that they have a frightened teenager in their care. The worker says the boy was found wandering around, terrified and unable to give clear answers at first. The shelter worker says that the teenager has finally spoken. He claims he is an American boy who went missing years ago. The shelter worker reads out the description of the missing child they found in international missing persons records. The age and the name match Nicholas Barkley. When the news reaches San Antonio, the Barkley family is overwhelmed with shock and happiness. They thought they might never hear from Nicholas again. Nicholas's older half-sister, Carrie Gibson, immediately gets on an airplane. She flies across the Atlantic Ocean to Spain to bring her brother back home. When Carrie arrives at the youth shelter in Linares, she is brought into a room to meet the young man. He looks tired, nervous, and shaken. He keeps his head down. But when Carrie looks at him, she sees a boy who seems lost and hurt. She hugs him and tells him that she is taking him back to Texas. She identifies him as her long-lost brother, Nicholas. In late 1997, Carrie and the young man arrive back in San Antonio. His mother, Beverly Dollarhide, welcomes him into the house with tears of joy. Nicholas is finally home. He moves into his old bedroom. He lives in the house with his mother, Beverly, and his older brother, Jason. At first, the family is simply glad that the nightmare is over. But as the days go by, people outside the family begin to notice strange details. Before Nicholas disappeared in 1994, he was 13 years old. He had light blonde hair and bright blue eyes. He grew up in Texas, speaking English with a typical Texas accent. Now, in late 1997, Nicholas should be 16 years old. But the young man living in the Barkley house looks much older. He looks like an adult in his early 20s. His hair is dark brown, although he has dyed it blonde to match Nicholas's old photos. Most strangely of all, his eyes are dark brown, not blue. And when he speaks with a heavy French accent. People in the neighborhood and local officials are deeply confused. How can a boy's blue eyes turn dark brown? How can a teenager from Texas completely forget how to speak with an American accent and sound French instead? The young man has a detailed answer for every question. He tells his family and investigators a horrifying story. He says that after he vanished from the park in 1994, he was kidnapped by a secret criminal organization that traffics children across the world. He says they flew him to Europe and held him captive in dark rooms for 3 years. He claims that the criminals performed cruel medical experiments on him while he was held in captivity. He explains that the trauma means severe mental and physical distress, and the chemical treatments changed the color of his eyes from bright blue to dark brown. He explains his French accent by saying that his captors spoke foreign languages around him for years, forcing him to adapt. He also has several new tattoos on his body. He claims his captors put those tattoos on him against his will. The family accepts this explanation. They believe he suffered terrible trauma, and they want to protect him from further pain. They do not push him with hard questions. They just want him to heal. However, law enforcement officials and investigators are not so easily convinced. A private investigator in San Antonio named Charlie Parker becomes interested in the case. Charlie Parker is a skilled investigator who pays very close attention to small details that others might miss. He watches news clips and video footage of the young man speaking. Charlie Parker notices something unusual about the young man's face. He looks closely at the shape of the ears. A person's ears grow, but the basic shape and structure of the earlobes never change throughout a person's life. The ear structure of the man claiming to be Nicholas does not match the old photographs of 13-year-old Nicholas Barkley. Charlie Parker contacts Special Agent Nancy Fisher from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, also known as the FBI. The FBI is the National Law Enforcement Agency of the United States. Agent Nancy Fisher and investigator Charlie Parker begin working together. They consult medical experts about the young man's claims. The experts tell them that medical experiments and stress cannot change a person's eye color from blue to brown. It is scientifically impossible. Furthermore, language experts explain that an American teenager would not completely lose his native accent and develop a thick French accent in just 3 years, even under difficult conditions. The investigators decide that they need undeniable scientific proof. They ask the young man to submit his fingerprints and DNA samples. They tell him it is a standard procedure to close the missing person case officially. The young man agrees, but he appears increasingly nervous as the testing approaches. In February 1998, after the man has lived inside the Barclay home for almost 4 months, as Nicholas, the official fingerprint analysis comes back from the federal database. The fingerprints sent back from the law enforcement database matched a 23-year-old French criminal named Frédéric Bourdon. Now, let me walk you through what investigators eventually pieced together. The man living in the Barclay home was not Nicholas Barclay at all. He was Frédéric Bourdon, a 23-year-old serial imposter born in France on June 13, 1974. Bourdon was already famous in European media, where he was called the Chameleon because he had taken on over 40 fake identities in different countries throughout his life. In October 1997, Bourdon was staying at the youth shelter in Linares, Spain. He was hiding from European police because he was an adult using a youth shelter, and he feared being arrested for vagrancy, which means wandering without a job or home. To avoid arrest, Bourdon decided to pretend to be a missing American child. He called an official missing children center in the United States, pretending to be an American police officer working in Europe. He asked the center to read him details of missing American boys so he could cross-check them. The agency gave Bourdon full details about Nicholas Barclay, including his name, birth date, physical features, and family background. Bourdon then hung up, waited a short while, and called back from the shelter. This time, he pretended to be Nicholas Barclay himself, claiming he had just escaped from a kidnapping ring. When Nicholas's sister Carrie Gibson flew to Spain, Bourdon was terrified that she would instantly see he was a fraud. Bourdon was 10 years older than Nicholas, had brown eyes, dark hair, and a strong French accent. But Carrie was so overwhelmed by grief and hope that she accepted him right away. Bourdon moved into the family home in San Antonio. He dyed his hair blonde and drew fake tattoos on his body to match Nicholas's real marks. For nearly 4 months, he lived as a teenager in Texas, attending high school and sleeping in Nicholas's old bed. When FBI Special Agent Nancy Fisher and private investigator Charlie Parker confronted Bourdon with the fingerprint evidence in February 1998, Bourdon finally confessed. In September 1998, Frédéric Bourdon appeared in federal court in San Antonio. He pleaded guilty to passport fraud and making false statements to federal law enforcement officers. The federal judge gave Bourdon a sentence of 6 years in federal prison. This sentence was much longer than standard guidelines for passport fraud because the judge noted the severe emotional cruelty Bourdon caused to the family and the justice system. After completing his prison sentence, Bourdon was deported back to France. During the federal investigation, Bourdon made a strange and disturbing claim to officers. He claimed that the Barclay family knew he was an imposter from the very beginning. He claimed they accepted him into their home only to cover up a crime, suggesting that the real Nicholas had been killed inside the house years earlier by family members, including his older brother Jason. Police thoroughly investigated Bourdon's claims. They searched property records and interviewed neighbors, but they found no physical evidence at all to support Bourdon's theory. Tragically, Nicholas's older brother, Jason Barclay, died later from a drug overdose. To this day, the real Nicholas Barclay has never been found. His body has never been located, and his disappearance remains an open, unsolved investigation with the San Antonio Police Department. It leaves us with a quiet, lingering question about how far hope can take us and how grief can sometimes make people accept even the strangest reality just to avoid facing a painful truth. That is it for today's story. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please check out the rest of the channel, as there are many more stories like this one, with plenty more on the way. And if there is a specific story or topic you would like me to cover next time, or if you have any thoughts about tonight's case, please leave them in the comments below. This was Sleep to Stories. Good night and sleep well.